Hello friends, today we're playing some 4D golf. This is a new game by Code Parade and it's pretty amazing. A regular golf course with some ups and downs and hills and valleys, that would be considered a 3D course, and that would be a normal thing to be playing golf on. However, this game plays golf on 4-dimensional courses. That's courses with a 4th dimension of space. Often people call time the 4th dimension, and that can be true if you choose to label it that way. But in this game, we're talking about a 4th dimension of space. Time still exists here too, so in this world, time is a 5th dimension. I'll try and speedrun an explanation of 4-dimensional space, but I like to think of it in terms of like you have a line that's 1-dimensional, it's only one dimension in which you can move up and down. Making that 2-dimensional, you would then have a square where there are 2 degrees of freedom. You can move up, down, left or right. That square can then become 3-dimensional by extruding it through the 3rd dimension where you now have 3 degrees of freedom to move around. And the tricky part comes right here in imagining extruding this cube through a 4th dimension of space to create a hypercube. This 3D cube would have to be extended into a dimension that we don't know of. Our normal dimensions are the directions you can move. You could have north, south, east, west, and up and down, say. So what do we call this new 4th dimension? Well, Charles Hinton, who wrote a lot about the 4th dimension, he called it Ana and Kata. So just like north-south, it's another pair of directions. Think about giving directions for someone to come and visit you and you live in a tall skyscraper. You would first need to give the location of your building on the flat grid, say how far north and east of a certain point you are. And if our world was 2-dimensional, that's all they would need to find you. But because our world is 3-dimensional, you're not living on the ground floor, you're actually up on, say, the 10th floor. So you'd also need to give them this 3rd bit of information which says to go 10 floors up. And in our world, that's all they need to find you. But if we lived in a 4th dimension, you would need to give one more bit of information. And that would be, okay, you're now on the 10th floor, but now you need to go a certain distance, Ana or Kata, to find the spot in the 4th dimension. And that there is kind of the crux of this game. There's a control on the mouse that allows you to turn in the 4th dimension and play golf on all these 3D slices of a world that only makes sense when it's joined through the 4th dimension. Right now I'm rotating in the 4th dimension through Ana and Kata, and you can see that the course is changing, but so are the things on the side. For example, look at that arch. This is the only part of the arch that exists in this 3-dimensional slice of the world, but the arch itself is 4-dimensional, because if we look at a different location within Ana, we see it growing. The first challenge on this game is to actually find where the hole is that we're aiming for. That kind of looks like it, but actually that is only the shadow of it. The actual hole is all the way over here. See, so that is actually what we have to aim for. On every other 3D slice that we were in before, like that one, the ball wouldn't go in, you'd never finish the round. So first of all, you align yourself with the right Ana Kata direction, like that, and then you put the ball in. But the problem here is that the ball is actually in a different slice than the hole. So we're going to have to move through the 4th dimension until the ball and the hole are aligned. One way to do that is just to hit the ball against the sides and hope that it slides into the correct part of the 4th dimension. It's like in a game where you run against a wall and slide up a hill or down a hill. The same is happening when the ball hits the walls of the course. It is sliding up or down, but not up and down a normal hill, it's sliding up or down the Ana and Kata direction that you can't actually see in this view. Often in this game, things are connected only in the fourth dimension. All these different little tracks that you're seeing now are 3D slices that on their own don't offer a path from the ball to the hole. But as I scan like this, you build up this greater four-dimensional picture of how they all connect in some hidden way to lead you eventually to the hole. In this default view, you see up and down as marked on the compass, but you of course don't see everything. A four-dimensional world cannot be displayed in 3 dimensions, let alone on a 2-dimensional computer screen. So there's a dimension that is hidden, and in this case it is the Anakata 4th dimension. But we can switch to volume view here. This has just changed the dimension that is hidden. Now the up and down direction is hidden. So there's no sort of gravity going on here. My ball isn't falling to the side. It is just sort of suspended in the middle. There's no gravity because up, down is not shown here. What we're seeing instead is the Anakata. And it gives us the perspective to see that what looked like little slits in the course are actually squares. And that if we putt in this view, we can putt through the squares and know we'll make it to the other side. You can also see that the hole is actually a sphere. In our normal view, we only were seeing one slice of the hole, and this is still just a slice of the hyperspherical hole, but from this volume view, we can actually get the ball in the hole from any angle. Here's another interesting course called Thread the Needle. This slice of the course makes it look impossible to complete. We know that there must be some trick going on in the 4th dimension that links the ball to the hole, but we don't see it until we go to volume view. In this view now we're seeing that hidden 4th dimension, and it gives us a pretty good sense of what the actual course looks like and where we need to go. The reason that this works so well for this course is because there isn't any up-down information that you really need because the course is flat. If this course instead had some hills in it, where that up-down information was actually necessary to know, then moving into the 4th dimension view isn't actually that helpful. In this game, you are never seeing the full picture. When faced with a hill or a slope, in volume view that will appear as a solid wall. It's kind of annoying because you can't see where you need to go, or know with what strength you need to hit the ball through the slope. But it is this way because in volume view you don't see any information about up or down. Areas with different elevations are invisible. Think about a 3-dimensional hill that juts out of a 2-dimensional flatland. We know that the hill comes out into the 3rd dimension, but for a 2-dimensional creature who is confined to only see what's on the 2-dimensional plane, to them they can't see the hill. They just see the flat sections at either end and a mysterious gap in between. Those flat sections would stop abruptly when the hill leaves the 2nd dimension, forming a wall like what we're facing in this game. We're seeing an abrupt stop where the course goes out of the dimension that we're viewing. If I actually line up this red line going horizontally across my screen while I'm in volume view, and then switch back to the default view, I'll always be aligned with the hole. That is because my horizontal position in this view is my position in the 4th dimension, and if that position is the same as the hole's position, then I know that I'll be able to find it when I get back. If we go back to our flatland example for a minute, and, for example, draw a square around one of the creatures there, then that flatling is essentially trapped inside of the square. The only way for them to get out of it would be to pop out through the third dimension. But they probably don't know about the third dimension, or at least just call it a mysterious dimension that's perpendicular to all of the ones that they can comprehend. It's a similar vibe with what we're doing here. Instead of being trapped in a square, we might be trapped in the 3D equivalent, which is a cube. The only way for us to escape from a solid cube would be to pop out through the fourth dimension, for example, moving in the Ana direction out of it. And that's what we're doing here with some of these shots. I brought you up here actually to a special level. It's a tour of the mezzanine, which is where we were before, so we can get a closer look at some of the cool displays. The one and only Klein bottle. Despite its association with 4D, it's really still a 2D surface. Bringing it into the fourth dimension means it becomes more like a ribbon than a bottle, so it's obvious you can untangle the overlap. Klein bottles aren't the only surfaces like this. In fact, all smooth surfaces, no matter how many intersections they have, can be untangled without overlap in 4 dimensions. So here we're looking at slices of a 4D painting. I guess a 4D painting is really a 3D sculpture, so these are slices of a sculpture. In this case, slices of a Mandelbrot sculpture. The Mandelbrot set extended to 3 dimensions. And here's how 4D creatures may paint our Earth, showing it in its entirety. I found with the game that the best way to play it is kind of just intuitively, to just hit the ball, hope for the best, and then adjust from there. Then when you start to feel lost, looking at the various map views and trying to figure out your next kind of move. But I don't think that trying to be too intellectual about it is the best way to get a high score. You kind of just need to get a feel for it. And it's really cool to be able to say that you can get a feel for something that is 4-dimensional. I think that Charles Hinton would love this game because his whole thing was about trying to form intuition for the 4th dimension. One way that Hinton did this in the early 1900s was by getting his kids to play on something that would ultimately become known as the jungle gym. By getting kids to run around and move within a 3D lattice, he thought that they would be able to gain better intuition for 3-dimensional shapes and therefore to be able to imagine manipulating them and rotating them in a 4th dimension. He also sold these quite complicated sets of cubes that, when you played with them and rearranged them, the different colors on the cubes would supposedly help you to visualize different cross-sections of a hypercube. I feel like playing 4D golf has got to be the most modern-day equivalent of this that I've played with. I don't think that anyone is able to truly visualize the 4th dimension or to truly be able to see, I guess, in their mind what a hypercube, for example, looks like. But at least we can play golf on it and, feel the ball sliding around the walls, switch between views, and try to stitch together the closest sort of approximation our brains can do. Now, if any of this game hasn't been crazy enough for you so far, the game's final world says, surprise, let's throw in a 5th dimension. In these rainbow-coloured 5D levels, you can turn in both the 4th and 5th dimension to get a true sense of the 5D course, which no human could visualize. These levels really show off how impressive the programming is behind this game. Perhaps the only things harder to understand than higher dimensions are the devlogs Code Parade has made about how he made this game. Every single one of them is mind-blowing in a different way. Watching them, you realize that even something like making a tree in this game is not simple at all, because it's not a tree, it's a 4-dimensional tree. And that's not even to mention the stuff that's in the 5D level. There's a link down in the description to this game on Steam if you want to try it out for yourself. Thanks Code Parade for making it, and thank you for watching this video. A thank you to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible, and a special shout out to today's Patreon cat of the day, Kizzy.